Hey there, Tara Lloyd from Fairway Independent Mortgage Company, talking about 5 things that shock first-time homebuyers. Because sometimes you take a while and you want to get ready to buy a house and you're super excited, we're gonna do this, and then you get in, fill out an application, and then it's like, huh? What is that? Is that even a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. Anyway, item number 1 is closing credit cards. I see it all the time. People do it all the time. So, you think you've been good and you're paying stuff off, getting rid of that debt, and got it down to a zero balance, and then you just think, I'm gonna just pay that off. I just want to close it and get rid of that card. I'm gonna rip it up because I don't want the temptation, or I don't want the debt, or whatever. I think that's bad. So what that does is actually tank your credit score. About 35% of your credit score is made up from those trade accounts. So if you have one, that one will dictate how much of that history gets attributed to your score. If you have 3 or 5, the same thing. If you close all of those, you lose that 35% of your score. You lose a tremendous amount of credit history and the ability to have the positive gains of having a payment history on your credit accounts. So that's a big deal. It seems kind of counterintuitive, but keep those credit cards open, because that is a huge factor to your credit score. Item number 2, speaking of payments, is your mortgage payment. A lot of times, if you're looking on Zillow or some of the other search sites, you might have a different perception of what sort of payment you qualify for than you actually do. So a lot of times people are looking at houses that are way up here, and then by the time you come in and you look at adding hazard insurance and property taxes and things like mortgage insurance, which is a really big one, then it really kind of puts you in shock as to what you actually can afford in real life. So the next thing that I want to talk about also has to do with payments, recurring thing here, is your student loan payments. So everyone knows that you have to count your monthly obligations against your income to figure out what your debt to income ratio is. But a lot of times, because it used to be that you didn't have to count loans that were in deferment against your liabilities, but now you do. So if your credit report shows some student loans with zero payment on it, that's great. But then what we're going to have to do with those is calculate a potential payment based on 1% of the balance of those student loans. So that can be significant if you have a lot of student loans, and that can kind of mess with how much you can qualify for. Item number 4 is the P word, paperwork. That's not a surprise for everyone. Everyone knows that the mortgage process requires a lot of paperwork. What is surprising for some people is the fact that you have to provide things like your 1099s and your W-2s that are stored away in some drawer somewhere, or more uncomfortably, your bank statements. So with bank statements, sometimes people cringe or delay getting those to you because they're worried about, I don't want you to see my Starbucks transactions, or my tab from girls' night a couple weeks ago or something like that. So please just know that if you're working with a professional loan officer, we're not looking at your individual transactions and trying to figure out where are they spending their money, or is it in a responsible way, or how much do they eat out. No, we're looking for red flags that underwriting might notice, or things that we might need to know or be aware of, or be privy to in the process. So things like overdraft charges and big deposits from cash deposits, just anything weird that's out of the ordinary that could signify potential fraud or risky behavior as far as not paying your bills. So that's what we look at on that. And then the final thing that is actually the final part of a transaction all in all, often overlooked, is closing costs. I think most people are prepared to pay a down payment, or at least to address that. And most people know you got to pay things like earnest money deposit, and maybe pay for a home inspection or something like that. But not a lot of people take into consideration closing costs, which is actually a significant portion of the cost of buying a house. Sometimes 2 to 2.5% of the purchase price of the home. So that's a lot of money. There are ways to get closing costs paid for by using a seller credit to apply toward those costs, or which can be tricky if you think that the property might not appraise for more than you want to offer. Or there's also state programs that will offer a down payment and closing cost assistance. But those are things that you just need to kind of address up front and be aware of going into it, and have that conversation with your loan officer. Moral of the story is it's never too soon to sit down with a loan officer and talk about your options and figure out a plan of action that's going to be helpful in getting you to where you need to go, instead of thinking you've got your own plan and executing it, and then a year later you meet with someone only to find that you kind of maybe did the wrong things on that plan. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope it is helpful to you. And if you have any questions about things that you might need to do to get pre-approved, please reach out.